Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for logging in to From Blind Spots to Eyes That Never Blink, the HSE Leaders Playbook for AI Vision. We've had a lot of people register for today. We can see there's just a few more about to join us. So if you'll just bear with us, we'll start in a minute or two. Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to From Blind Spots to Eyes That Never Blink, the HSE Leaders Playbook for AI Vision. We'll be unpacking what AI vision really means for health and safety teams, not in theory, but the reality of factories, warehouses, and construction sites. My name's Jeremy Michaels. I'm the strategic content writer here at Viso. We work with organizations across manufacturing, construction, logistics, and beyond, who've all asked a simple but uncomfortable question. What about everything we don't see? That could be the near miss on a night shift, the momentary lapse in PPE during a rush job, the pattern of unsafe behavior that only shows up when you look at weeks of video, not a single audit. Those are the things we consistently hear keep HSE leaders up at night, not what's in the incident log, but what never makes it there. So over the next half hour, we'll look at how AI vision helps close those gaps, how to deploy it practically, and how to do it in a way that builds trust rather than fear. We'll take some questions at the end, so please do drop them into the Q&A as we go. I'm delighted to say I'm joined today by three people who know this space inside out. As I introduce each of them, I've asked them to share briefly why they care so much about this topic. So first up, Reese Cherry. Reese is one of our HSE ambassadors at Viso, with nearly 20 years in senior HSE roles for organizations like Kraft Heinz, Reckitt, and Yodel. He's been the person, like some of you, I guess, that gets the 3 a.m. phone call, the one that's fighting for safety budget, and the one who knows every statistic actually has a name behind it. Reese, a warm welcome to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. So look, in answer to your question, for me, this is a really exciting time in HSE right now. We're seeing tools emerge that genuinely extend what safety teams can do, I suppose, rather than repackaging old ideas. And look, it's important to say that AI vision doesn't replace traditional methods that we trust and we've become accustomed to. For me, I think it sits alongside them and fills those gaps, helping us manage risk more effectively, and really making sure that people go home safe, right? And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely, that is totally what it's all about. Thanks, Reese. Next up, Chris Royal. Chris is our sales director here at Viso, and he works with enterprise teams deploying AI vision across some of the most demanding environments where downtime can cost millions and safety lapses can truly be catastrophic. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you, Jeremy. I think what motivates me to join and share today is really the moment when we see safety managers seeing their first months of AI vision data, when they receive that and they can say, you know, this is what I always suspected, but now I can actually prove it with this data and I can act on it. So I think today isn't about shiny technology and sharing that. It's more around giving health and safety leaders better evidence and more levers to keep their people safe and keep their operations running.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. And finally, Sasha Gatseliuk, one of our expert solution engineers. Sasha works hands-on with customers to design, test, and scale AI vision safety use cases. So she's the bridge between what AI could do and what it actually does in a dusty warehouse or a windy construction site. Sasha, welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. My reason for being here is simple. I want to demystify this technology. There's a lot of jargon around AI, specifically AI vision. And my goal here is to help people see what really matters. So the teams can build a solution that works for their sites, with their people and their conditions.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. Great to have you here with us. Let's dive in and start with what I'd consider the big question, and that's why now? Reese, you've lived through several waves of safety tech. What makes this moment different?
I suppose for me, I'd say for the last decade, we've seen some huge progress. We shouldn't underestimate that. We see the introduction of really robust controls. Machine guarding is a really good example of that. Better training, more structured audits, mobile apps for things like injury reporting and being able to deal with things on the spot. And we've seen injury rates come down significantly across many sectors, but we have to acknowledge that's not all sectors. But I would say we've kind of hit a bit of a plateau. We don't see that same rate of improvement that we've enjoyed perhaps in the past. The incidents that are left tend to happen in the gaps between shifts, between walkarounds, often in those 5 seconds when someone thinks it'll be fine just this once. We relate that to those behavioural type incidents. And traditional tools weren't designed to watch every corridor, every machine, every shift, and all the time. So I guess really we arrive at a point that human observation has its limits. And for me, AI vision doesn't magically solve everything, but it does give us continuous visibility where perhaps previously we've only ever had snapshots. And for me, that's a real shift.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that, Reese. So Chris, as soon as the word AI appears, budgets obviously come into play. How do teams make a business case for this?
Of course, the business case always is one that can come up, and I'm sure health and safety leaders are one. It's something that they're very familiar with, and so looking at this, the way that most people are approaching this is looking at risk and the way to quantify that risk. And so, if you look at Heinrich's pyramid, which in some cases is going out of vogue in some areas, but nevertheless can speak to these different levels. For every serious injury there, you can see that you'll have tens of minor injuries and hundreds of near misses. And so most organizations are only seeing a fraction of those near misses at the moment. Over 80% go unreported. And so these are missed opportunities to drive change and understand what's happening on the ground. We recently worked with a customer who, through Visor's AI Vision, discovered actually over 150 near misses a month in just one facility. And so in that same facility, only a handful had been self-reported. And so you can see the difference between just a few self-reported incidents and 150 that Vision AI can capture. And so once they had that visibility, they could target where was the highest risk hotspots for this. They could adjust and drive behavioral change through signage and such, working with their teams, and they could refine procedures to bring this risk down and bring down risk, both risk levels and the outcomes off that in terms of injury rates. And so within a few months, they saw clear drops going from that baseline, a clear measured baseline, and then clear drops in the number of proximity events and unsafe behaviors. And so that translated directly into avoided incidents, reduced downtime, fewer claims, and of course, for insurance, better insurance premium and negotiation there. And in some geographies, what we've heard is that a single incident can cost well over $1 million. And of course, in a European context, it's often really around risk, but in a North American context where we often work as well because we cover a global range, this is very important there. And so when you factor in both the direct costs and indirect costs of that, there's significant ROI, whether you're tracking from a risk perspective or from a dollar perspective there.
That's really clear and very insightful as always. Thank you, Chris. If I can turn to you, Sasha, what are your thoughts on the value of AI vision in this context?
I think Sasha's on mute.
We might have lost Sasha there for a minute.
Yes,
Sorry,
we
maybe
We
back.
got you back. There you go. I think you might have been stunned by the question. So
Absolutely. What was the question?
Sasha is actually out on the road on the coalface today, so please forgive us for that minor technical glitch. I'll take the hit for that. So Sasha, building on Chris's coverage of risk and ROI, I wondered what your thoughts are on the value of AI vision.
Sure. So for me, value isn't just fewer incidents. Of course, we want to keep people safer, but done well, AI can actually strip away a lot of admin. So the system can pre-populate incident records with time, location, even video evidence. So audits then become a matter of reviewing events rather than manually collecting them. Over time, as you do prevent more issues, obviously there's a lot less to document. And that means not reducing workforce, of course, but HSC teams actually spending more time with the teams, coaching them, finding other innovative ways of preventing those accidents. So really putting them back into the positions where they belong, where they make the difference.
Fantastic. So thank you, Sasha. Before we move into the how, I think I'm going to just talk to the elephant in the room, one myth to tackle. Reese, you mentioned this comes up a lot. Is this just surveillance, but with better branding?
Well, look, it's usually the first question that I'm asked, and myself, not dissimilar to others, perhaps skeptical when I first entered into this space. And I think trust is everything in safety culture, right? So we've got to get this right. And if people feel watched or believe that data is going to be used against them, we can create a place of fear and not a place of safety, right? So we need to be really clear about that. The key is about being really transparent about what is the intent and having a really solid communication with our colleagues, our workers. Surveillance is about catching people doing things wrong. And safety monitoring is about spotting perhaps hazards, risk patterns, and it allows us to take meaningful intervention steps. We're watching for, I don't know, like the fast forklift trucks, maybe the engineer climbing over the machine, the blocked fire exits, people entering spaces where they perhaps shouldn't be. And that happens from time to time. We have to be open about that. It's not about spying on people sort of during their coffee breaks. So look, for me, if you involve people like our safety reps and our safety committees, explain what's being monitored and why, show them how it leads to real improvements. We can address those concerns really early on, but you have to do the groundwork. That would be my key takeaway.
Fantastic. Thank you. Super comprehensive and very clear as always. So let's switch gears and make this a little bit more practical. We talked about this being a playbook. Sasha, you help teams choose their first use cases. How do you go about approaching that?
That's a great question. I think successful deployments start with clear strategy. So before anyone touches a camera or any streams, what we do is we sit down with HSC operation teams and ask, what keeps you up at night? Where do you see the highest risks? Where do you have data gaps? From there, we look for use cases in the sweet spot of high value and relatively simple to deploy. So what that means in practice is often we find our customers going with a couple of similar ones, such as PPE compliance monitoring, so checking for hard hats, high-vis vests, safety glasses, and this tends to happen at choke points, so maybe the entrances. This happens hundreds of times a day, so models get feedback quickly and impact is obvious. The second one is man-machine proximity. Alerts when people come too close to forklifts, so AGVs or other heavy machinery. We all know that tends to be the leading cause of injury in most workplaces. So it's instantly one of the most popular ones, and that gets put on the table really quickly. And the last one I would say is probably zone breaches. So whether they're permanently no-go zones or conditional zones. So when a certain piece of equipment is on or for a certain time of day, computer vision is very good at recognizing when an alert needs to be set for those levels. So all of these give you immediate signal, clear value, good data, and really great proof point that the system is doing its job early on.
Fantastic. Particularly like that summary of the sweet spot of high value and relatively simple deployment as a great starting point. And flipping it the other way around, what are the classic do not start here use cases for early deployments?
Yeah, also great question. So I would definitely say something low frequency. So maybe slip, trip, and fall detection or very rare emergencies. Of course, they're still important, but you just don't have enough data early on to build trust. We've had clients actually try and fake falls and other incidents to actually see if the data works, to help us get more data so we can train the model. But as funny as it is, it does not scale. If a real event only happens every few months, it's very hard to tune models or convince stakeholders that the system is working. So our advice is start where you have frequency, clear labeled events, build confidence, and then move into more complex scenarios.
Fantastic. Reese, do you have some perspectives on that by any chance?
Yeah, I do. I think some leaders want to solve every safety challenge from the start, and probably all for the right reasons, and who can blame them, right? But I think the hard truth is that if we try to do too much too soon, or if the system's trying to do, say, 10, 15 use cases from day one, most likely we won't excel at any of them and credibility starts to suffer. So a big part of, I think, safety management is around influencing and having that credibility. So we want to avoid that. For me, nailing one or two important topics first is a really good place to start. Showing supervisors, frontline colleagues that the system genuinely helps, and then expanding it from there. That steady momentum for me works a lot better. It gives the organisation time to learn and adapt and really ensure we successfully land the project.
That makes perfect sense, especially that learning and adaptation. Thank you, Reese. Chris, how long does this first phase usually take then?
Well, it can actually be quite. It can range, let's say, quite a lot. But for many of the standard use cases, which health and safety we would consider to be more standard, those can be done within 2 weeks. Actually, it's a very quick time to value, and that's set up of the full application. But a more typical pattern is a 6-week, roughly 6 to 8 week cycle, where in weeks 1 and 2 we're picking the sites and the cameras, we're capturing baseline data. We're aligning stakeholders around this, so health and safety teams, the actual people on the front line who are using equipment, who are going around. We're understanding goals and success metrics, so the key KPIs that we would need to feed back to show progress here. Then in week 3 to 4, we're deploying and tuning models within the specific environment, so localizing this, looking at things like lighting or angles or workflows and how it integrates with those day-to-day workflows. And by the end of this 4-week stage, the system is live, it's sending alerts and functional there. And then in week 5 and 6, we're integrating further with the health and safety workflows. So who cares about this information? Who needs to be alerted? In what times? So for example, a tier A versus a tier B, we're refining thresholds in terms of making sure that people don't get too many alerts within a period. So between one alert and the next, we might want to wait 10 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour. We're starting to measure clear KPIs around near misses or response times or audit time saved, and reporting that in dashboards. So by week 6, you should have hard numbers and clear stories, and enough to decide where to roll out to next to scale up, which we commonly see at that phase, those scaling decisions.
Got it. Thank you, Chris. I mean, it's amazing to think how fast and how far you can get within just 6 weeks. But one big worry we hear about is infrastructure. Quite often we hear people saying or thinking, do they have to rip out everything and then start again in terms of that infrastructure? Sasha, from your perspective, what's the reality here on that?
Yeah, and I mean, that's a brilliant question to ask because it really depends on the vendor. If the business model is selling hardware, they may push for a full replacement. Advisor AI, we're software only, which means we're hardware agnostic. So if your existing cameras can provide a clear stream, we'll work with them, even if they're 5 to 10 years old. If you do need extra cameras, you're free to choose. We see great results with budget options instead of multi-$1,000 units. We also tie in other sensors, so whether it's temperature, air quality. We also do sirens, beacons, door interlocks. So really it's no longer just a vision system, but it just becomes a broader safety ecosystem, not a standalone island.
That's really interesting. You mentioned edge devices. Can you just explain for our audience what edge processing actually is and why that matters for HSE teams?
Yeah, so an edge device is really just a fancy computer. What it does is it mainly runs on your local network. It's very close to your cameras, and all the AI happens on this edge device or computer on your site. And what that means is if you've ever had to upload a video to the cloud or send it via text message to a friend, you know just how long it takes, and you always see that wheel spinning. So that's what cloud-only systems do. If you're having to upload the video 24/7 to the cloud, that's how long it will take. Then it needs to be processed and the data needs to come back. So that adds what we call latency, consume huge amounts of bandwidth, and creates privacy concerns. For safety critical events, waiting seconds or even minutes just isn't acceptable. At the edge, everything happens locally on site, and therefore the information is processed and fed back in milliseconds. If internet drops, the system keeps running. Your video doesn't have to leave the facility, which is a big privacy and a cost win. And you're not streaming that massive amount of data to the cloud 24/7.
And maybe if I could just add to that, once you've got that architecture in place at that first site, scaling just becomes a repeatable playbook from that side of things. We've seen some customers go from one pilot to sometimes dozens of sites in under 90 days because the hardware setup, because we integrate with those existing cameras, easily set up with that edge device and the software configuration. So we'll reconfigure to localize for the logic and the safety culture for each of those global sites where that may differ. So that's fairly standard there. So that can easily be done. And then the last piece is integration. So an alert on a lonely screen isn't enough, of course. Can't be actioned, and we're not just about sending alerts. It needs to create a task. It needs to go to the right person to have some evidence to be able to drive behavioral change. So some data. So there can be data-based decision making. And so it matters how AI vision is woven into existing incident workflows in terms of who it's going to and how that happens. And so it stops being just a project and becomes part of how that safety team and that organization gets things done.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. We're rattling along nicely here. Let's shift gears again and talk about readiness. So I would argue that deployment success hinges more on the organization than on algorithms per se. Reese, what's on your checklist before a rollout of this type?
Yeah, a good question. So look, the obvious thing that I call out first of all is to understand if our stakeholders are aligned and on board. So HSE operations, facilities, IT, they all need to be genuinely talking to each other. And I think if even just one of those teams are missing, you can feel it later. I think if I think a bit deeper about that, the HSE team, they know the risks and the regulatory expectations that they operate in. I think ops, they understand workflow realities and I suppose really what interventions are practical. IT owns security, data governance, infrastructure. So for me, I think get them all in the same room early, define the objectives, agree the KPIs, and really plan the rollout. After that, projects tend to move more quickly. If they don't, things can drag on for ages. And I think maybe my experience, I've seen things drag on for months, maybe even years. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier around having credibility. We want that return on investment, right? We need to see some of the results quite early doors. And then I think the second part for me is around process clarity. This is partly what Chris just spoke about moments ago. But I think we need to be prepared because before that first alert fires off, we need answers, right? So we need to understand who's going to see those alerts, how quickly are those alerts going to be reviewed, who validates whether they were correct or false, what does escalation look like? You could get lots of these alerts come through. Perhaps we need to do something with those. And I suppose how much time do we need to devote to the data and the response? And that's a question I get asked a lot. I think if these things aren't defined, people will improvise on the fly and confidence can drop quite quickly.
Yeah. And then maybe on the technical side to add to that as well, it's often just the basic things. So stable power, a stable network as well, security around the edge device and clarity on data retention, particularly in various European jurisdictions. So how often is that data going to be wiped, which you have full control over, and access, who gains access and role-based access. So none of this is rocket science, but we just want to make sure it's thought through early so we can put that in place and it doesn't slow anything down. And we have readiness assessments that cover people, process, platform up front to guide you through that process. So that can really be the difference between a 6-week versus a year-long slog getting through these things.
Excellent. One of the things I've noticed is that across the panel, we've mentioned trust a few times. Reese, how do you build trust when you introduce AI vision to a workforce?
Yeah, look, I think the reason we're here today is because this tech is new, right? And we have to be really open about that. People won't understand what we understand. So I always start with a simple message. This is about safety, not surveillance. We're watching hazards. We're not trying to micromanage people or spy on people. But I mean, crucially, you can't just say that. Just like all things in safety, when we adopt new controls, we have to be transparent. We have to show it. We have to prove it. So how I've done this in the past is I like to bring safety reps into sessions, whether it's the HSE meeting or perhaps even a standalone session, perhaps even involve or create what we call a safety improvement group, and just walk through live views and explain exactly what's being detected and why. We can talk about how that data will and won't be used and answer any questions on the spot. And I think it's a really good place to start. When people see that the alerts highlight, say, someone walking into a forklift lane, for example, or walking too close to a loading dock edge, and that response is around coaching, redesign, and it's not about punishment. You'll feel the temperature in the room change quite quickly and people will immediately buy into it. So workers feel spied on, trust evaporates. If they feel protected, it grows. And I think that message is quite clear.
Excellent. Very clear. Thank you, Reese. Makes perfect sense to me. Sasha, we often talk in this context about privacy by design. What does that look like in practice?
It means privacy isn't an afterthought. So from day one, you have to define what the system can look at, what it absolutely cannot look at, where is the data processed and stored, how long can you keep that data where it is, and who can access it. In many setups, faces or identifying details can be blurred unless there's a specific investigation or a specific reason why they can't be. Data with Visor AI stays on site rather than going to the cloud. Access can be restricted to only a small set of authorized roles with full audit trails, so you can see who viewed what, when did they view it, And if need be, you can question that. So when you combine these controls with clear communications, workers can see the system is designed to protect them, not track them.
Yeah, that's absolutely essential. Thank you, Sasha. Chris, any perspectives to share on this topic on privacy and building trust?
I think the smoothest rollouts that we've seen here are the ones where communication is really part of the project, not an optional extra. So posters, toolbox talks, Q&A sessions, often involving unions or worker councils early in the process in terms of scoping to make sure that they're involved and actually involved. And then I think one crucial point around this is that leaders must be explicit that AI vision is not a tool to catch people out. So coming from the top, it's if the first visible outcome that teams see is disciplinary, then the program's reputation is damaged. And FISO, that's not the angle that we want to take. We want to look at systemic challenges and understand how to drive behaviors in a positive direction. And so what we need to ask is, does this feel like the right thing to do? And fix the system, not blame the individual. That's our stand on this.
Excellent. Really helpful, all three of you, on that topic. I'd like to talk about regulation now. So, Chris, coming back to you, how should HSE leaders be thinking about compliance in this space?
So, a big headline in recent times, actually, within Europe, is the EU AI Act, and various different geographies. If you look at the Middle East or the US, have similar regulation that they're looking at. And so this treats, under the EU AI Act, treats workplace AI, including safety monitoring, as a high-risk area, which means that there needs to be transparency, traceability, and human oversight around this. But the good news for everyone is that if you're already doing safety tech and safety responsibly, then you're well on your way towards compliance around here. The Act is just formalizing those good practices. And so when evaluating vendors in any safety tech, really, there's three things that are important to look at from our perspective. Firstly is data ownership and isolation. So you should own your video streams, your models, your configuration. You have often a unique and valuable data source, and it's important that that's not harvested for often others' benefit or pooling some of these things. And so you should be confident that it's not being used to train a model that goes to your competitors, for example. So that's data ownership. Secondly, around serious security and privacy, really important at this time. And so certifications like ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2, these are difficult to obtain. There's a lot to go through, but it means people and vendors who have this that it's most secure. And so FISO actually has both of these. We've gone through both of these processes, and so I think it just shows from a vendor side that that vendor treats your data with the level of care that it deserves. And then lastly, the flexibility around this and the scalability. So can you add new use cases as your needs evolve? Can this scale up? Can you upgrade to different models as these come out? We see on a weekly basis new models coming out from different companies. Can you swap out cameras without rebuilding things from scratch and use your existing camera network? Regulation and technology will both move. Your platform and your overall ecosystem of technology needs to move with them. And again, this is something that FISO brings in terms of offering both that scalability and flexibility.
And if I can just perhaps jump in, Chris, from a practitioner's perspective, I'd probably add a couple of things. So I think we need to keep an audit solid audit trail. When alerts happen, I think we need to be able to talk about who reviewed them, what action was taken, and how has accuracy improved over time, how have we responded to those over time. It's invaluable for regulators, the investigation process, but also proving to our own colleagues that there's accountability in how that system is used.
Fabulous. That's been really comprehensive. Thank you all. We are moving towards the finishing straight, still a little bit more to go. But let's take this opportunity to look ahead. Right now, a lot of AI vision, understandably, is about detection. But Reese, What's next?
Oh yes. Well, look, this is where I get very excited. So this is the next frontier, if you like. We call it predictive safety. So spotting those conditions that tend to precede incidents and then acting before anything actually happens. What a tool to have in our safety toolbox. Just think about that. Imagine your system learning that near misses spike on a Monday morning, during shift changeovers or when the temperature or workload are high. Instead of just logging those events, it proactively prompts the colleagues on the shop floor, the supervisors, for example. I don't know, maybe an alert. It could be a flashing beacon, it could be a text, it could be anything, but it says, look, risk is elevated in the production line for the next hour. Consider extra checks, maybe slow the vehicles down, whatever it may be, but they've got an opportunity to respond to that almost before the situation becomes a problem. And we're already seeing early versions of this. And I think, from a safety practitioner's perspective, it moves us closer to engineering risk out of the system. Really being proactive in our approach. And, for my peers in the world of safety, that's what we aspire to.
Fantastic. Predictive safety. I mean, really a bold leap forward. Sasha, what can you share on this in terms of predictive safety in the Viso suite already?
Yeah, I love Reese's question because it really feeds into what I want to say. So I already spoke about different sensors and different ways what we integrate into our AI vision technology. So actually inside Viso Suite, we're already using analytics to do exactly what Reese was talking about. So to surface those patterns, when and where incidents cluster, how behaviors change over time, and even, for example, how temperature may impact that behavior. So we're already empowering our customers with all of that data that Reese was just speaking about. For us, this goes a step further. So with the large vision models, what we call it Viso, a term we coined is visual general intelligence. So now models won't just recognize objects, which is what they mainly do now, but they will interpret scenes. So today, a model may see a person lying down. Tomorrow's model will understand whether that person is safely inspecting equipment on the floor or they have appeared to have fallen and perhaps require assistance right away. So when those models become commercially viable, and we're getting really close, the organizations that have built that flexibility, edge-based infrastructure will be able to just plug them in and get an immediate setup, get immediate insight using those models. Like Chris said, make sure that you're ready for that scaling.
I think the especially interesting point here is that we're not talking about 20-year horizons to build this out. The building blocks like edge hardware, large vision models, automated learning pipelines, all those exist today. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have predictive and VGI, visual general intelligence, like capabilities that will become standard. And so the companies that are experimenting now and building these initial use cases and the data, processes, trust, they'll be the ones who can adopt these capabilities quickly and safely across their teams.
That's truly fascinating. So what I'm getting is really the question isn't if this future is coming, but who is positioning themselves to benefit from it. Reese, what are your thoughts on this?
I'd say if your board and your leadership team are really serious about improving safety, then there's definitely a place for AI vision. It's one of the tools that can help us get there faster. I do think that if organisations start now, taking into consideration all the things we spoke about today, thoughtfully, taking people along with us on the journey. So don't do safety to them, do it with them. But those organisations will be well ahead when the predictive capabilities fully mature.
Amazing. Well, Reese, Chris, Sasha, thank you all. I hope everyone would agree that this has been a really rich discussion so far. To everyone listening in, we also hope this has kind of moved the conversation from is AI vision right for us to where might it make the biggest difference, which is a subtle differentiation. I'm going to turn now to some closing thoughts from each of our wonderful panelists. Reese, can you kick us off?
Yeah, look, I've said a lot today, but I think I'll probably reiterate some of what I've said. And look, traditional safety methods have taken us a really long way. We've got a lot to be proud of, but the next level of performance needs visibility beyond what our human eyes can provide. And for me, I don't think we should be scared of that, but we should fully embrace it. That's kind of how I got involved with this group of people. AI vision is already live in real operations today, and it helps people go home safe. So look, let's go embrace it. Let's educate ourselves and get on board.
Embrace it indeed. Fantastic. Thank you, Reese. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Jeremy. I think as health and safety leaders, everyone here makes an implicit promise to teams every single day. AI vision doesn't replace your judgments or your leadership here. It just gives you the eyes that never blink, never tire, and never miss those key moments that may have slipped through the cracks before. So something to help.
Fantastic. Great summary. Thanks, Chris. And last but by no means least, Sasha, what would be your final takeaway?
Yeah, so I think the most crucial things for teams to remember is that you don't need to go from 0 to perfect in one day. Start with solid foundations, good processes, clear governance, flexible platform, then grow from there as organization and technology matures.
Perfect. Okay, thank you all. Such a great discussion. So just to let everyone that's watching know, we'll be reaching out to you and sharing the recording and links after the session. But for now, we're going to move into Q&A. I can already see a number of questions coming in, but we are tight for time. So if we don't get your question live, we certainly will follow up afterwards. Let's go straight to the first question I can see from the floor, which is, how does AI actually identify a near miss? Anyone want to take that? Maybe Sasha?
Perfect, thank you. That's a great question. And the reality is AI does not identify a near miss, but what it does identify is a piece of equipment that can cause damage. There's some background noise. What it does identify is equipment that can cause damage. So, for example, forklift, digger, and it identifies anything that's vulnerable to that. So that can be another piece of equipment, that could be a person. And having identified both those objects, you then need analysis in place, essentially. So this is where people get it wrong. It's not just a model. That is not what AI is. You also have to do some logic building to explain once these get too close, if the vehicle's moving too fast, if the person, is just within reach, you need to sound an alarm. And that's not what AI does. AI identifies those objects. You also need to have that flexible logic in place to really allow your business to twist and turn when things change.
Fantastic. Great answer as always. Really appreciate that. Let me see. On to the next one. Oh, this is a good one. Our workforce is unionized. How do we navigate this conversation with union representatives? Reese, if I may, what would you say to that one?
Yeah, so look, early involvement is key. I think I've said that a couple of times. So look, my stance is this: you bring union reps into the design conversation from day one. As Simon Sinek would say, you've got to explain the why. And this is about reducing injuries, right? Not monitoring productivity. So show them the privacy protections. Look, what's exciting about this is you can replace a person with an avatar, or you can blur their face, or whatever the organization wants to do. That level of control is there, and I think not many people will know that. I'd also say probably give them input on policy. So how will that data be used? Who has access to it? Who doesn't have access to it? What happens if somebody is caught, doing something unsafe? I don't know, want to call it a violation, whatever you want to call it. And I think when unions and our safety reps and those colleagues are partners in the design, and not recipients of, say, a finished system and feel like it's being done to them, I think the adoption goes much more smoothly. So that would be what I would say to that.
Great answer. Thank you so much. I think we've got time for just one more. Let's have another look. This one looks good for you again, Sasha. Can AI vision integrate with our existing incident management system? Great question.
Yes. So I don't know what incident management system you have, but as long as it has API access, which most of modern platforms will have to, of course, we can push alerts, we can push event metadata. So again, when did this happen? What did we detect happening? As we don't identify people, it won't say who it includes, so you may have to investigate that. And it takes all that evidence, including the video, if your company chooses to do so, and populates it straight into your EHS platform. So the goal is that AI detected near miss looks identical to a manually reported one in your system, just with better data capture and faster response time.
Amazing. Right. I think sadly we are actually at time. Please do continue to reach out to us or reach out directly once you've received our follow-up email. As I mentioned before, we'll send you the recording and resource links after the session. On behalf of Reese, Chris, Sasha, and everyone at Viso, thank you all for your time and for your great questions and your commitment to safety excellence. One last thing to mention, as a thank you, we are offering all attendees priority access to our AI health and safety audit. This is a guided self-assessment and it benchmarks your readiness across people, process, platform, and compliance. It actually just takes a few minutes to complete. And the result is it gives you a clear picture of where you are and perhaps what to address next. So you can access this right now at viso.ai health-safety-audit. If you register your interest there, we'll reach out with an exclusive invitation to workshop the results. And following that, you'll also get the first look at 2 new tools we're offering as part of a free AI safety audit. That's our ROI calculator, helping with the business case for AI vision, and a use case builder, prioritizing applications with the biggest impact. So that's that bit over. The journey from blind spots, I would say, to complete visibility starts now. In fact, it's already started. I hope it goes without saying, we'd be absolutely honored to be part of that journey with you. Stay safe and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again for joining.